It's James Murray. We're with Bill Morrow talking civic politics.
Yeah.
Bill, the campaign's got a week left before the votes are counted. What are the issues that you're hearing from people at the doors?
Well, I would say, James, probably two things, or two issues are dominating what I'm hearing at the doors. Crime and taxation slash economy, I would say, are the two things that we're hearing the most about.
Now, on the issue of crime, you've been very outspoken on a couple of areas. First of all, on selecting a new chief of police. What do our readers and viewers need to know?
Well, I guess generally first on crime, I would say through the campaign we're a bit disappointed. We have two incumbent councillors who are running for mayor, and we really haven't heard them respond to any of the suggestions that have been put forward, at least suggestions that I've made. I haven't heard them respond to that, and it's a bit concerning. We're hearing people simply say, well, this is a health and addictions issues, and it sounds like they're sort of washing their hands of it. And it's true, it is a health and addictions issue, but we also, accompanying that, have a very acute and immediate crime problem that's facing us here in the city of Thunder Bay, and we need to deal with that. The solutions on health, addictions, on social programs, those are ideas that are legitimate, but those results will be seen and borne out years from now. They're not going to happen in the near term. So we have a very immediate and acute crime issue that we need to deal with, and I'm a bit disappointed that I'm not hearing them respond to that. To your question about the Police Services Board, yes, I very clearly and publicly have said it's my belief that the Police Services Board should not go forward with the hiring of the new chief right now. They're currently under investigation. Until that report is tabled, I don't think they should move forward. I don't think it's in the best interest of the board. I don't think it would be in the best interest of the new chief, whoever that person might end up being. And so I thought they should wait. We'll have a new board in place as well, new members on the board, 3 of them from council, perhaps as many as 3. So I think for those reasons they should have held off, hit the pause button, even though, as I've said, they're completely within their authority to move forward. It's my belief they should have hit the pause button on that one.
Now, a lot of people in the city, when they're hearing about crime, we're hearing people coming in from out of town.
Mm-hmm.
So now, as the mayor, under the Police Services Act, you're not allowed to tell the chief of police what to do. But the Police Services Board can. Would you be taking a seat on the Police Services Board?
Well, as mayor, you would be, for sure, on the Police Services Board, and absolutely the board can direct the result that they'd be looking for. They can't tell the chief how to try and actually achieve the result, but they can say, for example, we'd like a community policing program, or we would like a guns and gangs unit, and it's up to the chief then to implement the direction. But even city councillors can ask their board members who come from council, for example, who may be on there now, the councillors themselves can say to their reps on the Police Services Board, this is what we want to achieve, and give that message to those council representatives on the Police Services Board to provide some direction and see what can be achieved that way. So we've been at this point very disappointed with the response that we've seen.
Now, shifting gears a little bit, the economy.
Yeah.
One of the pieces as the MPP and as a minister in the Wynne government, that you brought a lot of work to Bombardier. Now, what happens when the contract that's currently being built, all the cars that are being built at Bombardier, what happens when that contract's over? What's next?
Well, thank you for acknowledging, what I've helped to bring in what is a Liberal government from 2003 to 2018, we helped to bring. I mean, we've been speaking about this for some time, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to be resonating with people. There's an incredible economic piece that has happened here in Thunder Bay over the last number of years, and now we have a Conservative government in Ontario that, if you go back to 1995, very publicly demonstrated and articulated that they were not in the mass transit game. In other words, they were not going to support the City of Toronto in terms of them purchasing mass transit vehicles. When we ran in 2003, we very publicly said if we form government, we will get back into that game. And we won government, and we did. And as a Liberal government and as a local MPP, we fought very hard to bring contracts to the city and to that plant. We saw the employment levels go from 2 to 250 in 2003 up to as many as 14 or 1,500. So we all understand the importance of it and what it means to the economy of Thunder Bay. And if those contracts lapse, we have a real problem. And so we will see what the current Conservative government in Ontario is going to do, whether they will continue to support the City of Toronto with the purchase of more subway, more LRV, more GO Transit vehicles. If they choose not to, it will fall to the City of Toronto and the federal government themselves to see if that will continue.
Now, with the Ford government, we have, as you just alluded to, we've got a real different sheriff in town in Queen's Park.
Yeah.
He seems to be taking a stop, pause, in many ways blaming the former Liberal government for spending, which, to be honest, is what every government coming into power seems to, you know, the predecessor left them a mess, now we've got to clean it up. As a former member of the Liberal government, and as the mayor of Thunder Bay, you go down to Queen's Park, and you're going to meet with Premier Ford. How do you think that relationship will be?
Well, I think in terms of the initial comment, we have to remember that we came through in 2008, the greatest recession since the Great Depression in the 1930s. And part of what we did and the decision that we made was to invest in the economy and to keep unemployment levels and the social dysfunction from getting any worse than it might otherwise have been, if not for the major investments that we made as a government. That was a path that we chose. Much of the investment decisions that we made was to supply enhanced financial support to municipalities, all 444 of them in the province of Ontario. That's part of my concern, is that the city of Thunder Bay has been receiving from the provincial government for the last number of years tens of millions of dollars in increased financial support. And yet we still find ourselves in a circumstance where we see increasing taxation levels. We've got a $220 million debt. We're paying $13 million a year in interest expense to cover that debt. It's my understanding that we borrowed $4.4 million from reserves to support and keep a tax increase at 3%. That we might have borrowed $5 million from Thunder Bay Telephone. I haven't had anybody confirm for me or deny that we actually did that. So I'm really concerned on a local level where we find ourselves when it comes to taxation and what may happen if that significant provincial support that's been in place for a number of years now may disappear. As you've described, this current premier says he may hit the pause button, and that may affect some of that financial support that's come to the city of Thunder Bay.
Now, one of the pieces that's been discussed for a long time, of course, has been twinning the highway around Thunder Bay. Speaking with members of the new government, they're talking about Vermilion Bay to the Manitoba border hitting the priority list. So it's going to be an issue, and you know that's one that has come up at both of the debates. It's an issue with a lot of people. So talking with, you're going down and meeting Finance Minister Fedeli, Premier Ford, Minister Rickford. Coming from the provincial side, do you think you're going to be able to open those doors as effectively as
the projects? Well, you've just confirmed that they intend on spending money on highway construction and on four-laning the Trans-Canada Highway, but just a different part of it. It would seem to me that it would make sense that the project that's already underway between Thunder Bay and Nipissing, you would think, might receive serious consideration to be completed. The Trans-Canada Highway, if they choose to go forward, we started that program, I would suggest as well and remind you, but if that becomes part of what gets twinned in Ontario, I think that'll be good too. Another program, highway program that I was chasing and had substantially advanced, I would say, would be the expressway between Arthur Street and Balsam Street. And all four of those interchanges that I was looking to move forward with, we had preliminary design done on all of them. And it's one of the great heartaches for me, a project that won't move forward, I wouldn't expect, unless we're successful in terms of the lobbying. Your question is, will it be more difficult or less difficult for me in terms of talking to an opposition government? It's a question you could put to any of the mayoral candidates, I would suggest, in terms of their ability to enhance, to justify, to bring back support for the city of Thunder Bay. Same question that can be said to all 444 mayors and councils that will be elected after October 22nd.
Shifting gears again, one of the issues in Thunder Bay has been racism. And you've had that at the debates. What statement or message would you want to send to the people of Thunder Bay? Where does Bill Morrow stand on the issues of racism in our city? It
came up at the debate the other night on Thursday night, and I had an opportunity to respond to the question. I'm very happy that I did, because the question was only put, I think, to two of the candidates on stage, maybe three. Clearly the mayor, and actually if I would step back, I started by answering that question by talking about something we've seen very recently with the Premier of Ontario, where he was in a photograph with somebody who would be considered to have some views that might not necessarily represent, or does not necessarily represent, we would hope, the views of most people who live in the province of Ontario. He had a picture taken with a woman and would not disassociate himself from that woman for several days. We see what we're seeing south of the border, where the President of the United States has taken some very difficult positions and sometimes seems to be supporting activities that we would hope he would not, and supporting groups that we would hope he would not. point being that if your leaders are not going to step up and oppose very vigorously and very clearly this kind of activity, it's going to create a problem. And we don't want those ideas, those sentiments, to become normalized, to become accepted by society. So obviously, as the mayor of the city of Thunder Bay, you need to, where you are faced with that, speak very clearly out against it and represent the city as a whole. That's what you have to do. I also said in my answer that, you know, I only have really about 2 heroes, and Martin Luther King was one of them. And he couldn't solve it, so I don't pretend that I can. We will likely be faced with this, you know. Nobody can really make it go away. Anybody who suggests they can, I'd love to hear how they plan to do with it. But where it exists, where it rears its head, we need to face it down and call it what it is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our readers and viewers?
Thanks, James. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the time. We're about a week away, so hoping that we can look forward to some support from the community on October 22nd.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.